letting go of Christianity was tough. The deconstruction journey is rough. It's difficult at times. It's much like remodeling your house. It gets worse before it gets better. But in the end, it's much better. So yeah, as you can imagine, I get a lot of questions and emails and different things. And um, it seems like the most common issue with walking away from faith is just that. Like it's just that. It's how do you walk away from something that at one point in your life was everything to you? It was for me. Hi, my name's Timmy Gibson, former fundamental evangelical, Bible thumping, tongue talking, Holy Ghost rolling pastor. I was a pastor for 30 years. Youth pastor, student pastor, associate pastor, and then pastor my own church for about 17, 18 years in Kansas City. And so a total of 30, which is a long time, man. It's a long time. Started out as an evangelist, but been a Christian all my life. I was born into a Christian family. I didn't know any other. I had no idea of any other life. I say this all the time. I was born in the church pew, and the truth is, it wasn't like I literally was born in the church pew. But I was born, and then within a few days, I was back in church, or in church, not back in church. I wasn't in church before I was born, except as in my mother's womb. Anyway, so yeah, for me, it was, like I said in the other video, this is part 2, I suppose, talking about deconstruction. And, who knows what I'll end up titling it. I keep changing the title in my mind and in my notes. What am I going to title? Anyway, so it was my life. It was my identity. And most people who come from the group that I came from, that evangelical group, that is also how it's viewed. This isn't, matter of fact, the evangelicals make fun of Sunday Christians, right? Evangelicals make fun of people that, C&E. They're just C&E Christians. They're not really Christians, but they just go on Christmas and Easter. As an evangelical, formerly, I'm atheist now. When I was an evangelical, and I was talking to one of my buddies about this the other day, a fellow atheist, and we were just talking about when we were evangelical Christians, we often would talk about all these other people who called themselves Christian, but they really weren't. Like we were the ultimate judge, right? And that's funny. When I think back to that, I just shake my head, that as an evangelical Christian, I didn't think the Lutherans were really, Christian. The Catholics for sure weren't really Christians because they prayed to Mary. And of course, obviously Mormonism is a cult, and so is Jehovah's Witness. And so is, it's like, you just have all these opinions about all these other religious belief systems. And of course, your make-believe fiction is the true, real thing, right? Of course. So yeah, it is challenging. It is difficult, and especially the social piece. Because again, like myself, I I was a pastor, so there's many levels there, right? Because it wasn't just something that I believed. It was like my life. It was my career. But outside of that, even, for most evangelicals, for them, it's not just, they're not just a Christian. I mean, they really believe, and it it shows in like every area of their life, right? They're giving of their time, talent, and treasure, and they, very plugged in. So it's kind of it's almost an all or nothing. I'm reminded of that verse that we would often use. I even used it too to manipulate, I suppose. At the time I didn't know it was manipulation, but um, that don't be lukewarm, and then God will spew you out of his mouth if you use lukewarm. 1 foot in the church, 1 foot in the world. Like, be ye separate, come out from among them. And like, there's all these things, all these tactics that evangelicals use, unbeknownst to them. It is manipulative. It is manipulation 100%, and it is culty. It's a very cult. It's a cult tactic, and no cult thinks they're a cult like that. I mean, you ask any evangelical pastor, is this a cult? Of course, they're going to say no, and they'll usually say the same thing, which is, no, people can leave anytime they want. Yeah, but not without guilt and shame. Not without, feeling like they are lukewarm and that God's going to spit them out of their mouth. Or the worst of the pastors would say things, and I remember I went to a church that this pastor did this, basically saying that if you were attending his church because people were praying 24/7 for everyone who attended the church, that they would be safe and protected as long as they were giving financially to the church, that they would be protected. Well, that is horseshit. Like, that is 100% horseshit. That's a lie. So when you see a TV preacher saying, if you'd send me $1,000, God will bless you, no, he won't. You'll be more blessed if you keep that $1,000. I'm telling you right now, you be more, because that pastor don't need no new, he don't need no new Rolex or a Breitling or whatever watches are out there that are expensive, right? He doesn't need another jet. He doesn't need another Bentley or Rolls Royce. I'm going to live like a king because Jesus is our king. Like, man, that health and wealth gospel it is just, it's so full of shit, like, on the surface, that somehow people are blinded by it. It is the wildest thing, right? It's like someone else I know that just lies. Bold-faced lies, but they never apologize about it. They never say sorry. They just keep lying. And then they double, triple down. It's crazy. And somehow people find that just almost like refreshing. Well, of course he's lying. He knows he's lying. We all know he's lying. And I appreciate that, that he's honest about his lying or whatever. It's like, did you ever say that? No. No, where's the video of you saying it? It's like, what? Oh, man. Anyway, so yeah, it really, I just did an interview on a podcast I think it was called Divorcing Religion. And it was super fun. It was sweet. It was great. I loved it. And yeah, it was an honor to be on there. But she works as a trauma she works as a trauma therapist when people get out of religion. And I would say this, which is much needed. That kind of finish my thought there. I'm gonna see if I can get her to come on my show because I have a lot of questions for her. But one of the biggest and most important things I think that people who are walking away from religion need to do is at least see a therapist that isn't Christian, obviously. Like see a Christian that either A, specializes in trauma therapy or religious recovery therapy or in some way, something, because then they're very knowledgeable about that stuff. Or at bare minimum, see a therapist um, who you can talk to about it. Now, I don't, therapy is great. I've gone to therapy. Therapy's been a help to me. No shame in that. I don't think you need to go forever. Maybe you go 3 or 4 times. Maybe you go, once or twice. Like, just to kind of help you with either equipping you to work through some of the trauma that you may have faced in church. And all trauma is not created equal, though the tools, it's like, I could build a house. Oh, I can't, but someone that knew how, right? Like there's just a handful of tools per se that you, or maybe 2 handfuls of tools that you would need to build a house. But also, for the most part, those same 2 handful of tools would also do a closet remodel, right? I mean, it's like it's the same tools, and you're just using them for either something big or something small. And so when I think of therapy, I think if you can go to find a good therapist and just get the tools, get equipped to be able to handle some of the things that you might face coming out of religion. So let me kind of go back to what I was talking about when I first started this. For the evangelical Christian, the person that's deconstructing from the evangelical faith, again, it's everything to an evangelical. Like literally, it is everything, 100%. Again, I used to teach as a pastor, and it literally is an all or nothing deal. That's how it's taught. You're either all in or you're not. And if you can't be 90% Christian, right? You can't even be 99% Christian. It's either 100% Christian or you're 0% and you're gonna go to hell. And so that causes lots, that just gets you into you never feel good enough, never feel smart enough, never feel, like nothing, you're never good enough. It's kind of like Brene Brown's stuff. I think she really helped out a lot of either evangelical or former evangelical Christians, learn that they're enough. And so, yeah, it really might take a real effort to work through and to process through all the things and to unlearn all the things that you learned just through like osmosis. For me, I was raised in it, and so it wasn't like I was being taught and stuff in Sunday school and stuff, but I didn't go to Christian school, right? I wasn't homeschooled like so many Christians. Like that's a joke, right? Joke meaning like so many people joke about if they homeschool then they religious. I wasn't homeschooled, but I went to church so much that it really didn't matter. I could hear things at school and I was so brainwashed that I could self monitor. I would go to school and I would hear about evolution and my ears would reject it because that ain't the gospel. That ain't the Bible. We know God did all that. We ain't evolved from no apes. Clearly, evangelical Christians that don't believe in evolution just don't understand it. I didn't understand it for the longest time. I finally kind of understand it, right? Like I understand that chimpanzees or bonobos or whatever, they're our closest cousin. It's not like we literally evolved right from that. It's like anyway, that's some of this episode's about. There's enough. I mean, you can go on YouTube and learn pretty much like a lot as it relates to evolution. So if you just happen to be a Christian watching this, hey, but just dig deep into evolution. By the way, cuss and discuss below, like, share, subscribe, do all the stuff. It makes a big difference in the channel. Okay, so the few things that I would just kind of throw at you, if you will, as it relates to deconstruction, is, I mean, everybody has their own opinion about this. So, this is just my opinion. Take it or leave it, honestly. Like, in my mind, I'm thinking, is this, sometimes advice is like, everybody should do this. And sometimes advice is like, it might work for some and not for others. And so that's maybe what I'm thinking here, is that, everybody's on their own journey. Everybody's on their own path. There's a lot of ways to skin the cat, as they say. There's a lot of ways to do things, right? I mean, we all know that. There's just a lot of ways to do things. You see, like, just for example, right? You can some band, starts doing YouTube stuff, and then it blows up on YouTube, and then they blow up in real life. Other people just go from bar to bar to bar to bar, and then they hit it big. And some people just get discovered. And so, like, there's no one path to any kind of success, really. I think there's some common denominators, obviously, but there's a lot of ways to be successful. And I think it's the same with deconstructing. I think there's a lot of ways to deconstruct in a healthy way that can work. So here's my advice. I would recommend, when you begin to deconstruct, that you do it privately. And what I mean by that is, don't go telling your other sold out radical nutball Christian friends that you're not sure you believe it anymore. Now, if you have a friend that's maybe also, expresses some kind of a, some questions too, maybe you can talk about it. But I in retrospect, like looking back on my journey, it was private for me. I mean, I was a pastor, so like I was teaching, and my teaching was changing, obviously. But I had shut the church down by the time I realized I'm not a Christian. Like, I don't think, I mean, there's a guy, I'm spiritual, not religious. Like, obviously I had an evangelical church, and you can't be a not Christian. You can't be a pastor and not Christian and pastor a Christian church. FYI. At least I couldn't. I've had people say to me, did you consider continuing to teach, and yet privately you didn't believe? No, not for me. That, like, authenticity is something that I value. If you haven't picked up on that already, I really value authenticity. It's like one of the most important things, I think, to be true, to be honest, to just be authentic, to be genuine. I really, 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 really value that. So that would have been a huge conflict for me to try and continue to pastor while I didn't believe. Plus, what would I teach, right? And how could I teach with any kind of conviction if I'm not believing it? I'm just I can't be a fake person. That's just something I can't do. Not that I've never been fake. I'm sure. Maybe I've not been feeling well and I acted like I was feeling well. Whatever. I mean, we all will put on a mask on occasion, but for the most part, like, no, I don't want to live with a mask on. It's too much work, right? So, yeah, my personal advice would be to keep it between you and yourself, and just start learning. Really start reading, start watching particular videos, like really start doing that. And then if you can find friends outside of your church that you could connect with in person, preferably, right? I mean, I have a Facebook group if you want to have some online friends. It's called Timmy's Deconstruction Community. You're welcome to join it if you're not Christian. And, a lot of people to connect with. I think we're up over 800 people in there now. And in fact, I just did a post on, where are you from? And there's people all over the world, man. It's crazy. It's like people all over that world, which is just fascinating. I think it's just absolutely fascinating. And the majority of people in the group are from the United States of America. But there's a chunk of people from all over, man, all over. So, it only takes one, right? So, having just a friend or two from your country, maybe you'll get lucky. And as the group continues to grow, maybe it'll be so, big that you'll find people even closer that you can meet up for coffee and chit chat. I have that. I have a lot of good friends in my life. And I've made sure that when I meet people, and if somehow it comes up that they are no longer religious, or if they, most people don't say atheist. I really don't say atheist, honestly, except here. I don't meet people and say, hi, I'm Timmy Gibson, I'm an atheist. Like, I just don't do that. The only time that actually comes up is if this topic of religion comes up. And then if it does, I'm like, my line is, I'm just like, I'm not religious anymore. And they'll be like, tell me more, and if they ask, and then we can get into it. But I kind of wait until I know it's safe to say, yeah, technically I'm an atheist. Yeah, so that's just me. But, but I know I'm very intentional that when I do meet people and I do find out that they're either agnostic or atheist, or definitely walking away from evangelical faith specifically, I'll connect with them. I'll be like, hey man, here's my number. Like, let's grab coffee. I'd like to talk more about your journey away from religion. Kyle, that I have on my show often. In fact, I'm going to have him on here soon. He just came over yesterday, and not to film or anything, but just to have some coffee and catch up, because he used to live in Springfield, Missouri, and he just moved to Kansas City, Missouri. And so, we wanted to catch up. So, as soon as he walked in the door, man, we was talking, about stuff as it relates to, deconstruction and religion and faith and mysticism and, yeah, a bunch of stuff. It was fun. And, literally 2 hours just flew by just like that. And, next thing you know, I'm like, no, dude, I got to go. I got a rehearsal. And so everybody needs that. Everybody needs that. Everybody needs friendships. Everybody needs someone in their life that they can talk to without judgment, without fear of any kind of judgment, right? And if you have a spouse, hopefully you can have that. If you're already married to someone who's a Christian, that might not be the case. And that's fine. There's ways to work around that. If you single, I would highly recommend that you try to find someone of a like mind. At least because I say this all the time. My wife Jess not religious, she's spiritual. And so it works because she's not religious and she's not fundamental. And she's definitely not evangelical Christian. She's definitely not hyper conservative, right? I mean, there's like all these things, that we share. But yeah, so, she believes in a higher power. I don't. But it's, it's never been an issue. It's never been a problem, again, because neither one of us demand that the other see the world like we do. You know what I mean? Like I don't secretively or even at all want her to become an atheist. And that's just not something I ever think about. It's like, no, I'm atheist. Like she doesn't need to be atheist. We only need one atheist in the house, people. Right? And I mean, I can't speak for her, but I don't think she's hoping that I turn my life back to spirituality. I mean, you know what I mean? Like especially with spirituality, or especially with being spiritual, like it's just so different, right? Because like in that world, or in the Christian world, it's, you got to give your life back to Jesus. Well, when it comes to spirituality, come on. I mean, spirituality is like all over the fucking map. I mean, Christianity is all over the map too, but spirituality even more so. Like it's just a free for all. Believe whatever the fuck you want to believe, right? I mean, and that's fine. Honestly, I think that's just way better because it allows for so much individuality, which I think is important. All right. So yes, back to deconstruction. I do think it should be something that you keep pretty much private. Keep it between yourself and yourself, and look for some good, close people to talk to, whether it's online or in person, preferably in person, where you can have, good conversations. But, read books, watch videos, and journal, man, journal. I've said this before. I'm a journaler, man. I journal. I love to journal. I know that some people, make fun of that, of journaling. It's like, that's fine. I make fun of things too, right? So I mean, that's like whatever. I don't give a fuck. I'm still gonna journal. But I think journaling is helpful because you can journal your thoughts. I mean, it's fascinating because I've been a journaler for years and years and years and years. So I ran into some journals that I had from the 1990s, and it's just wild looking back at those journals and the things that I said, the things that I felt, the things that I believed. So yeah, keep it to yourself, especially when it comes to talking to people that don't share your beliefs or they're hyper Christian. You're just going to cause grief for yourself. So keep it private. Find some people to talk to. Educate yourself. Read. Do everything you can. And then eventually, you might need to like change your relationships. You might need to alter some of those relationships, because I think that one of the main things that helped me was that, one, I know the Bible, right? So I'm Bible literate, like I really know the Bible, and that helped me because I couldn't accept some stupid stuff. Like if a pastor said something and I'd be like, bro, like I know that verse. That's not what the verses that after that, what they say, or I'd be like, I know what that word means in the Greek. And you're kind of twisting that a little bit. Right. So for me, I'd been to Bible college, and so I had a decent understanding of Scripture and a decent understanding of the Bible and all of its fictions, right? And so I could tell when I was being bullshitted, like, right? And so I think it is important to kind of keep those thoughts to yourself, because it just keeps, it's almost like you start making a few strides forward and then you get whipped back in. A few strides forward and get a whip back in, right? And so I think that's why it's so important that you continue to study and to, because we say it's deconstruction, and it is, but also it's not just the deconstruction, it's the reconstruction. It's like you can't just demo a house, right? If you're going to do a bathroom remodel, well, you just can't demo it and that's it. You can't just deconstruct it. You got to then reconstruct it, right? And so I feel like that's the same thing when it comes to faith and religious stuff and spirituality and all that, is that you got to deconstruct all of it and then start from kind of like ground zero, right? And it's just a journey. It's just a journey. For me, the deconstruction, it took a while to pull it all apart. And then I kind of landed where I thought I was. And then, obviously, you guys all know my story. Most of you do. It finally just ended up where I realized I didn't believe it. And it felt good. Now, I've had people tell me that they got to that stage where they just didn't believe it. And then they started studying mysticism and studying other things. And they found their journey back to a spiritual place. And I mean, listen, I'm not like every atheist. Like, I'm not trying to get people to come over to my side. I'm not. I'm just not. And I'm not anti-God, right? How could you be? I'd be like being anti-Santa. I mean, I'm not anti. I don't believe in God. I don't see enough evidence to convince me that there's a God. The truth is, and I've said this before, nobody knows. Is there a God? Is there not a God? Nobody knows. Christians don't know. Hindus don't know. Jews don't know. Muslims don't know. Like, nobody knows, right? Nobody. Well, maybe the Mormons. Maybe them Mormons. Maybe old Joseph Smith. Anyway, no one knows, right? Like, nobody knows. What is it? Some people believe and some people don't. At the end of the day, some people believe, some people don't. That's it, right? That's it. And so people that really, 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 really struggle with their deconstruction for like a long time, I honestly, I do understand it, but I also don't understand it. But because, I mean, gosh, how long did I actually struggle with it? It was just such a gradual journey. Maybe a year, maybe a year. Because, yeah, I don't know. It was just somehow it was a clean break for me. Somehow I just saw it as bullshit and I knew it was bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, there was just something about it that it's like you just all of a sudden go, no. Like it didn't take me that long to not believe in Santa. I'd spent my whole childhood believing in Santa. And then I don't know if my parents told me or if I heard it. I actually don't even remember. But it didn't I didn't cry about it, really. I just like, by the way, he's not real. Oh, okay, that makes sense. Right? It seemed odd that, like I was kind of cluing in on probably it wasn't true anyway, based upon the evidence, right? So that's kind of how I was when it comes to Christianity. I just kind of realized, you know what? Of course, it just makes so much sense that it's not actually true, right? So yeah, that's what I recommend. I recommend doing it slow, steady, Don't tell anybody about it. Just kind of keep that to yourself. But seek counsel, seek wisdom, talk to other people who are deconstructing or who have deconstructed. Keep watching my videos. I mean, I talk about it every, twice a week, every Sunday, every Wednesday. You can join me right here for some kind of a deconstruction video that hopefully helps in some way. If nothing, it can be entertaining. So I try to be informational. I try to really speak from my heart, like really try to like what are people going through, and listen to your questions that I get from the comments or emails and direct messages. I really try to like categorize those in my mind and say, yeah, I should do a video about that. As you guys know, many of you have seen the comment that I did a video about it. And, I'll continue to do that, and just cuss and discuss below for sure. And I'll try to make sure to cover whatever you might want to hear. All right, so I think for the third video, so this would be like kind of number 2, I believe, of the deconstruction, little one of 3. This is 2 of the 3. I'm going to get Kyle to come on, and we're going to spend a little time chit-chatting about deconstruction and what are some key factors in doing it a healthy way. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope your day's full of love and kindness. Peace.